Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Some of the most meaningful jewelry you own isn't new. It's inherited. A ring from a grandmother, a necklace full of memories, but no longer your style. Duke's Jewelers reimagines family heirlooms into custom pieces you'll actually wear and love. Working one-on-one, Duke's designers honor the original story while creating something fresh and modern. Don't let meaningful jewelry sit unused. Let it live on beautifully. Visit Duke's Jewelers in Springville or online at dukesjewelers.com, where old stories become new treasures.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Trajan Wealth brings you this portion of the program. TRAJAN Wealth.com. It's Trajan Wealth for all of your trusted needs in retirement. Eric, thanks for being with us, man. 5 games left, my guy. Come on, let's get through this.
Yeah, it'll be over before we know it, really.
We're looking forward to it but we seem to be having the same conversation every night about how I think how great it is that these younger guys are getting the minutes that they are. And I know that logging minutes in the NBA, however you do it, is just so overwhelmingly important. I can only imagine that Will Hardy knows how difficult this type of situation is, but also you cannot replace the minutes in the NBA like these guys are getting.
Yeah, definitely not. And Will said pretty much just that last night, both before and after what was another good effort against the Denver Nuggets, in, basically talking about how there's a lot of guys that the Jazz are trying to develop almost at the same time, which can be hard to do. But the other thing he's talked about this season is that the locker room has not cannibalized with all these guys, trying to compete with one another for those development opportunities. It's all kind of happening seamlessly within the Jazz system, and they're giving good effort. They're competing against some playoff teams. And like you said, they're getting valuable, 30-plus minutes a night going up against some of the best in the league. And although things will certainly look different for the Jazz next season, and these young guys won't have, maybe the same type of role, the same number of minutes, the opportunities are there for development, and then the development can take another step in a different way next season and help the team when they're competing for the playoffs.
Yeah, it kind of feels like Hardy has this press game speech every single time at this point. I know he's eager for the offseason and pushing forward to straight positivity and knowing that, they're now going for winning after this. But from your eyes, you're close with the Jazz. You see it every night, and there's so much to be taken from the losses and the growth, as you just said, that, the team hasn't cannibalized itself. These guys are getting valuable time, and it's very hard to do with so many. How have you seen the growth of some of these players going up? We were kind of talking earlier about Flip and Cody and like who's actually made the biggest jump on the team, outside of Keontae. But from your opinion of these younger guys, how has that development gone, and what do you foresee in the offseason?
Yeah, I think you can point. I think that the positive is that you can point to with each of the Jazz young players, to certain things that have been areas of growth. Bryce Sensabaugh still has become a really good, consistent scorer, even though he isn't shooting the three as well as last year, and that's because he's shooting his best percentage inside the arc and around the rim. Kyle Filipowski, has been shooting less threes this year in terms of, his volume, but he's been more decisive in terms of when to attack inside the arc and is still providing that playmaking. I think the two guys you're probably most excited about in terms of their development and just their potential, ability to impact the Jazz moving forward are Ace Bailey, obviously, which is, he's been the talk of the past month, and Cody Williams. I think Cody Williams has had a really, really strong second half of the season. He's been, hitting jumpers in the mid-range. He's been more aggressive as a scorer. He's been a really good cutter. He had a career-high 9 assists last night. And defensively, he's got the length and the athleticism to make life difficult for opposing guards, especially. And Ace Bailey, his march was a breakout month for him. I mean, averaged over 19 points a game, shot 40% from three on a high volume. And I mean, he continues to do all the little things that people, coming into the season didn't necessarily expect him to do. Cutting, offensive rebounding, defensively, he's been really good around the rim recently. So I think if you're looking at those two specifically, considering how valuable wings are in today's NBA and two-way play, you have to be really excited about the growth and development from Ace Bailey and Cody Williams.
Eric, when you see these guys and they are getting those minutes, and then you look and see what the roster could look like next season, and everybody's trying to guess what a starting lineup would look like. But obviously in the type of draft that the Jazz are hoping for is that they're picking the best talent available still, and not just obviously not by by just a position. But if it were a perfect world, what player matches up with being one of the best in the draft and a position that the Jazz actually do need to make sure that they shore up for next year?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And like you said, I think always drafting for talent, especially when you're at the top of the draft, continues to make the most sense. But, if you're looking at next year's roster, at least as it looks right now, obviously things can change with free agency or trades. I think you're looking at a Jazz roster that should have a pretty deep front court. I mean, starting, potentially Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Walker Kessler. Kyle Filipowski has been playing both spots in the front court. Maybe a Yusuf Nurkic re-signs. Guys like Ace Williams and Ace Bailey and Cody Williams, can play on the wing. And so you're looking at some potential backcourt needs. Obviously Keontae had a breakout season. Isaiah Collier had a good sophomore campaign, kind of change of pace guard off the bench. But if you're looking at the top of the draft in terms of a guy like Darren Peterson, who could come in and be that two guard of the future, next to a Keontae George, I think you'd have to feel really excited about that fit. I mean, on the same hand, AJ Debanta, he is a similar wing type who is a bigger guy, probably more of a front court player, but with that kind of perimeter skill set offensively, that's something that Will Hardy would certainly be able to fit into the system as well.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car is gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Yeah, but that's size, right? And you say you have AJ playing the two, and you have that big front court with Jaren, Walk, and Markkanen, and then you bring in an AJ. I'm always interested exactly how it goes. Of course, you don't know which pick you're going to get with your lottery, but once you do get it, I think the top 7 picks in this draft are going to be quality guys.
That's what they say
from the boozers, but or just other people around. It's very interesting to where the Jazz would go with this. Is there a potential bad pick, right? Is there getting too many front court guys? Is there, you just labeled a couple guys of re-signing Nurkic. You got Flip that could potentially be coming off the bench, and 6-7. What type of rotation is the Jazz going to have to work with compared to they get the 5th spot in the draft and the top players are a boozer, and so they're increasing that. How does that look for the Jazz?
I think they're in an interesting position where, depending on where the pick lands, how the board and draft night plays out will kind of dictate, I think, their decision. The top 3 or 4 is kind of a consensus at this point with AJ, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, and then Caleb Wilson out of North Carolina. Once you get past pick 4, you enter this kind of guard-heavy range. And so I think if the Jazz do end up with anywhere from the 5th to the 8th pick, just by how things will likely play out on draft night in terms of who gets selected before their pick, they likely are looking at one of those guard options that have been kind of mocked in the top 10. But if you landed a pick 2, a pick 3, you will have a choice to make. And in some cases, maybe, it might be better to have your choice made for you in a way in these kind of situations. But given Will Hardy's offensive system and just where the NBA is today, with not necessarily focused on position, but more importantly, the skill set of players, it's hard to say that they could make a bad choice, regardless of if they take someone like a Cam Boozer, who in theory, yes, will play probably a power forward position in the NBA, but you're really looking at how does his skill set fit in with other guys. Right. Larry Markin is 7 feet tall, but he is more of a perimeter player. He plays a lot of small forward because of his skill set. And so I think because of that and where the league is today, it's hard for the Jazz to make, what would be considered a bad pick in this year's draft position-wise.
Let's say that they run down the Kings. They catch up to the Kings in the other direction, obviously. Getting to that 4th spot would obviously guarantee that they wouldn't convey. But as it is, and wherever they end up, if the numbers really played out like they would, I'll pretend like the other stuff hasn't happened in years past that have just been absolutely crazy results from the lottery. If it just plays out kind of from a numbers game and the Jazz are picking 4th, 5th-ish, is there any possibility that the Angels and Jay-Z would get wild and throw down some crazy stuff to get that first pick?
I mean, you can never rule out anything, especially with Danny Ainge's history of trading, especially with draft picks. I think in this draft, considering that as of right now, from all the reporting, there isn't necessarily a strong consensus on who the number 1 pick will be. I think AJ and Darren Peterson have kind of probably been, mocked a little bit more often at number 1, right. But considering how close, the top 3 or even some cases, top 4, mm-hmm. It just almost might depend on who would get that pick on lottery night. And also, the Jazz still have some additional draft picks in their ledger, and obviously they have a lot of young players on the roster, but they did use a couple of those draft picks to get Jaren Jackson Jr., and so you would be kind of having to evaluate how much do you believe in player X to move up to get them, and at what price it would take. We have seen also Danny Ainge do a draft night trading down from the first overall pick.
Yes.
In that Jason Tatum draft, and that worked out really well for him and the Boston Celtics. So there could be a scenario where the Jazz get lottery luck and potentially evaluate options to move down if they think that the guy that they like will still be there at a later pick.
Yeah, and I think that works for them, right? If the consensus isn't super strong at 1, and a team could take it or leave it with maybe they like Darren Peterson more than AJ DeMonte, but they know the Jazz maybe want him, so they could get something out of him. But if the Jazz really want that guy and they want to go after him, if teams are kind of like, yeah, I mean, he's really, really good, but we could take 3 guys and feel pretty good about it, there might be a better option for him there. But these last 5 games, lots on the road, 4 on the road and 1 at home with Memphis. How do these 5 games shake out? Because it's always interesting to see what teams like OKC, obviously, who are not going to have to be firing on all cylinders for the rest of that actual season. Although I know they want to win and probably get that number 1 overall seed, but are there any teams possibly shutting it down maybe over that last week as they get ready, or the last 2 weeks as they head into the offseason? And how do the Jazz fare in these last 5 games?
Yeah, I mean, it's always an interesting question. I think with playing Houston, tomorrow night, the Rockets are in a pretty intense battle for playoff positioning, right? Right now they're in the 5th seed. They're only a half game up on 6, and they're 1.5 games behind the Nuggets at 4. So, you have to think that the Rockets are going to keep pushing for it. Like you said, Oklahoma City, they might start selectively resting guys, but they are still, holding off the Spurs, who are 2 games behind them for the number 1 seed in the conference. That can make a difference in a potential Western Conference Final series. Then you look at a matchup against New Orleans, who has not been shutting guys down because they don't own their first-round draft pick this year because of the draft night trade last year. Yep. And so they've been continuing to play their guys and have been going for wins. And, Memphis is a team that has been, essentially just kind of focusing all on the young guys, getting guys minutes, similar to what the Jazz have been doing. And so that'll be a matchup between 2 squads that have really lengthy injury reports. And then the Lakers, on the last night of the regular season will be interesting because they are also right now in the 3rd seed, but only 1.5 games above the Nuggets, who have won 7 straight. So maybe by next Sunday that could be decided, in which case they would rest all their guys. But the other wrinkle of this is that with the add-in of the play-in tournament, all those teams that aren't in the play-in tournament do get that week off until the playoffs start the following weekend. So some teams have kind of approached it differently in recent years.
Eric Spyropoulos, he covers the Jazz for NBA.com, and he does a phenomenal job. Spyro, appreciate it, man. Thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you hopefully when before the very, very end of the season so we can get kind of the full rundown here. But we appreciate you joining us, man.
Thanks. Anytime, guys.
There you go.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.